Good morning. Today's passage we're going to read from the book of John. John is always fascinating the way he takes the approach on things, and this is in it's chapter 15. It's verses 9 through 17. I think I'm actually going to use my glasses for once to read this. The other words. It's all the red letters, so it must be really important stuff. So Jesus is talking to his disciples at this point, and he says, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and stay and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. For you are my friends. If you do what I command, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. This is my command: love each other." Nice, powerful words, and not the easiest thing to talk about in a sermon. But this is my command: love one another. Simple, right? Another part says, obey God's commandments, for they are not burdensome. It all sounds such a simple plan, but it's so misleading in its simplicity. It's just not as simple as it sounds. And I think we've all heard this passage before. And I have to warn you up front that I'm glad we're not playing a drinking game about every time I say the word love, we take a drink, because this would be a messy time right now. But I think the word love is kind of overused in our society, because it doesn't really mean deep down love a lot of times. Hey, I love peanut butter, and I love bananas, and I probably love peanut butter and bananas together. I love old movies. We all love things like this. Silly love songs. Chris and I love being empty nesters right now. That's kind of nice. I'm sure many of you love your Seahawks. It's great. Okay. And of course, there's a lot of love just between people. Love is love. I know one thing that a lot of us do love is our pets. And when I do this sermon for the congregation on Sunday, I'm going to have everybody actually get their pets. Because people just love to hug their pets, don't they? I mean, what is it that we love so much about our pets? Dogs, cats, birds, ferrets, lions, whatever we have as a pet. I say the lions part because my son-in-law, who comes from South Africa, had a pet lion growing up. And he's got quite the claw marks on his back to prove it. I think we just love how much this love is reciprocated with a pet. You love a dog, and that dog loves you, and then you love it more, and it loves you more, and it's we can't wait to see you when you get home at the end of the day. Speaking of my son-in-law, also in South Africa, they don't really see their dogs as members of the family like we do here, and he basically lives here now with us, and he couldn't understand about how much affection we have for our dogs. And then he got a dog. He gets it. But love is a big thing, right? I mean, how many songs are there about love? I actually looked up the stat that over 60% of every song written in this country is about love. And the number one song of all time? This Magic Moment. I wonder if you knew that. So John is talking about Jesus talking about love. And I really appreciate John's approach on things, because the other Gospels like telling the story, and you can follow as it goes from A to B to C to D to E. John usually throws in stuff because he's always got the long-term effect in his mind. It's not just a timeline. So all this stuff that we're talking about right now, these are the it's in the middle of this 5 chapters of farewell that Jesus knows where he's going, and he's talking to his disciples a lot, and he's telling them about what's to come, and we're supposed to grab that information that's within there. He talks about love, loving one another. There's many ways to love one another. We all, I think, know the basic definitions as, from the Greek, there's eros, which is the love between people, husband and wife, wife and wife, between two people. There's the philos love, which is like the brotherly love, the love we have for each other in here, and community and brotherhood and togetherness. And then it gets down to this love, and the term we've all heard is that agape love, and I really think this is what Jesus is talking about in this, the agape love, which is, it's more like love characterized by the concern or welfare of another person more than yourself. It's a doing more than a feeling. I think eros and philos are more feeling kind of loves, and agape is an action item. You're supposed to do something. You're supposed to do something to somebody else, even if you don't really approve of what they do or what their actions are, or as a group you may not, you may have some issue or something, but agape slices through that. You don't have to approve of the actions of the person we're supposed to love. It requires, however, that we act on behalf of that person. So we demonstrate our love in some practical fashion. Show our love, to listen, to care for. The agape person will do whatever is possible to feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, help the strange, imprison people. It sounds a lot like that story of the parable of the goats and the sheep, isn't it? What Jesus is identifying in that story is the agape people. And understanding that love is not the satisfaction of one's own needs, but satisfying the needs of others. And really, how appropriate is this that we're going to be talking about agape and about love on Mother's Day? It's probably the perfect passage for Mother's Day. I think that's not by accident. So his greatest commandment there was to love one another as I have loved you, as Jesus has loved us. It's a call to action. There was no if, there was no when, there's no conditions. This should be an easy decision for us. We can't just lay back and I'm sorry this doesn't make people happy, but that song that they'll know we are Christians by our love drives me crazy, because it's what Jesus is saying here. It's not just because we're Christians that they know. If we're doing things, if just being part of a group doesn't give us a free pass. I like to think the reverse. It's because of the things that we do out of love, people can tell we're Christians. And the thing that's different about agape love is different from pet love, is there's no condition about love me back. If I'm helping somebody, I should not be expecting reciprocation, love to come back. We're always paying it forward. Even if we feel we haven't been given anything to pay forward, we should always be paying forward. Good deeds, loving, without reciprocation, without acknowledgement. And that's a lot harder than you might think, although you probably do think it. When we were on vacation last week, we were in Hawaii, nice plug, and we were out to dinner, and this couple came and sat next to us, or 6 feet away from us, and they were on their honeymoon, and they were visiting from Cincinnati, and you could hear some of their conversation. And so during the time, the waiter came over, and I said, "Hey, I'd like to pay for their drinks and their desserts, please." And he says, "Okay, no problem." And I'm thinking, okay, so sometimes you think that's embarrassing, and people thank you, and so I've got this whole story made up about how somebody did it for us before, whatever. They get the bill. They say, "Excuse me, the drinks aren't on here." And he says, "Oh, that was picked up by somebody." And they said, "By who?" He said, "An angel or something." And that's okay. It's really funny because I really did stop and think, I really wanted to kind of explain it. And it's okay not to be acknowledged for something like that. It's okay to be anonymous. It's okay to do things for the sake of doing things as opposed to getting the thanks. The glass of wine took care of that. I was fine after that, so if you're worried about me. But this loving others, this following the path of Jesus, it's not easy. It's certainly not easy. Loving, forgiving, sacrificing. It doesn't really seem like human nature. It's like you have to work at it, without getting something back. To truly love, to truly agape, if you will, we have to put aside stuff. We have to put aside our spiteful sides, our boastful sides, any hate that we have, any proud thoughts, anything we have towards people. Because Jesus laid down his life for this love. Now, we're not all called to martyrs, but maybe like little deaths, little pains are okay. It's sort of like, they get you out of your comfort zone. It's sort of like for you skiers out there, and you ski all day. And at night, you're sitting there with your hot chuck in front of the fireplace, and your legs are just really sore and burning. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. It's the joy that you're getting from something, even though it's going to hurt a little bit later on or during it. For exercise during the pandemic, I've joined this rhythmic class. It's like a American dance and aerobics type of a dancing thing that's a really great exercise developed by somebody here in Washington. And I know after that workout, sometimes I really don't want to do the workout, but it's a lot of fun. And afterwards, I'm very sore, and it's okay to have a little death to pass on joy. Of course, Jesus went out. He did lots of great things. And I think it was because of where he came from and the promises that were made to him. Because he was rooted in the love of God. You remember during one of the Gospels, during his baptism, when God comes out and says, "You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." If that doesn't give you support to do whatever you want to do, I don't know what is. I think it's a special sauce when it comes to Jesus. I don't think I've used that term with him before, but it's this connectedness with God that allows him to go out and do these things. And we have to realize we have that support too. We have that connectedness to Jesus and to God to go out and just do great things also. It can be uncomfortable, this agape love, and people, I think nowadays, people are yearning for human contact, but they're still a little mistrusting. There's still too many scams on social media and phones and mail and everything like that. That people are just maybe not trusting of a stranger giving agape love in the middle of the street. Or maybe we can't receive that kind of love either. But I think we need to focus with Jesus and his connectedness and fill that chasm we have, and knowing that he has your back to do it. I've done some nice things too. I remember in San Francisco going to a soup kitchen. A bunch of us guys from our church went and did that, and I was really apprehensive about that. And I was a little scared. I didn't like going into the city anyways. It just was nothing to be scared of. It was a great thing to do. It was a little death of me, so to speak, to get there, but it was just wonderful to be there. It was agape. My scariest one, easy. When I was in that church in California, me and another adult took 12 teenage kids in our youth group on a ski trip to Tahoe. And that was scary. It ended up okay. I don't know why we did that, but I think it turned out okay. Because just when you think you don't have it, you always have the capacity to love more and more. Grace upon grace. Where do you sit on an airplane? Do you like to sit on the next to the window where you can just be by yourself and cuddle up? Do you like to be by the aisle? So you always say that, oh, I flip at the aisle so I can get up and move around or use the restroom. Or do you sit on the aisle so that if you have to actually talk to somebody, you actually have an escape route? Or do you sit in the middle because you just love to talk to people all over the place? I can't stand talking to people on planes. But I'll get over that someday too. And I think one of the reasons why we struggle with this a little bit, and when Jesus talks about joy in here, and we think about it, the thing we have to remember is joy and happiness are not the same thing. I think happiness is more of a human trait. I think that the eros kind of love and the philos kind of love lends itself to happiness more. Well, joy, that's a lot deeper. It's a quality of happiness, but it transcends our usual regular motivations to do things. It springs from an internal peace, I think. And the power that Jesus uses to do things is from God, and he knows that there is joy in that. He's talking about his death here, and he's talking about joy still. I mean, you think about our troubles today. Every age has troubles, right? Right now we've got pandemic going on, and there's more school shootings. Things are just breaking our hearts, and there's obviously still hunger and poverty, and there's cancer, and we look and we see the stories about the Asian hate crimes and everything. And how are we expected to get joy from that? Jesus talks about joy all the time. Is he out of touch with our reality? Does he know our problems? And is he in a protective bubble? Obviously, God knows. And he wants us to use these to find the joy. Because his joy is connectedness to God, and ours can be too. We can do things about the items we just talked about and still find the joy. Pandemic, we cannot be together, but look what happens on Sunday mornings when we're all in a Zoom thing. There is joy there, even though we're living through a pandemic. It comes from the midst of hardship, peril. He still talks about joy. The next few chapters, Jesus, I'm glad I'm not preaching on that stuff, because he's going to talk more about rejection and hatred and abandonment and joy. He always sees the joy in it. Not the happiness, the joy. It's a tough concept, because joy is hard. Joy, it takes work, it takes effort, it takes intention, it takes being uncomfortable. That's our great challenge, is to find this joy through the agape love. This great transformation around us to turn issues into joy, not just happiness, something that we do. Joy comes from agape love, so you're affecting other people too. The great setup for this passage is actually the first 8 verses, 1 through 8. That's the one about the vines and the bearing fruit. And Jesus talks about that God is the gardener, and that he, Jesus, is the vine and we are the branches. And we're called to bear fruit to it. And that great formula, I love math, and I love the formula, Father to the Son, to us, to others. As the Father has loved the Son has loved us, and we love others. It's not a reciprocating love. It's more like it imitates the love. It's more like it mirrors the love that we receive as the love we get. It's about growth. The vine grows, it expands, it extends, and it bears fruit. And so must we. One other important transition that Jesus has in the story is that he calls his disciples friends, and he points that out. I no longer call you disciples, I call you friends. This also is an important part of sharing agape love. It's subtle but important. You think of friends, you think about, well, it's people we hang out with, people that do things for each other, guys I can fool around with. I don't think he means the Facebook friends. That's not that kind of friends. In Jesus' world, his friends are he considers those friends people who love one another. He pulls them up to the level that he on par with his own. He calls them friends. There's no master servant anymore. And he chose them to be his friend. So So, and we have that power of transformation with other people too, to make those friends using that same criteria. So the relationship changed. If you remember, these disciples were not the, I don't mean to criticize, they weren't the best of the best of the best. Remember the story that Scott was talking about here, how all the Jewish kids were learning in the temples, and the rabbis came and they picked out who their followers would be. And after it was all over, Jesus went out. He's picked up Peter and James and John, and there's a bunch more. It's almost like the B team. He waited that, but he got the right people. And they did great things. It's not because they were great people. They did great things because they were rooted in the power of God, and they knew where it came from and where the joy came from and how to spread the agape love. Because there's nothing wrong with being a servant of God. There's been some great people in history that have been servants of God. Moses, Joshua, David, Ruth, Paul, James. There's nothing wrong with being a servant of God. Remember that relationship. The master gives the servant the orders. Friends communicate, and they trust more. And Jesus upgrades his disciples to friends, which is what he's calling us to do. Not because of anything they've done for him. This is not a thanks for anything. It's because what he has done for them. So now we should go friend others. So what do we do with all this information, these wonderful passages that are in here? We talk about agape love. We talk about joy and friendship and transformation. Think about the first 8 verses. Now we go bear fruit. We have the basis. Now we go bear fruit. Reach out. We do what Jesus did. Use the example. So the love that's being asked for us, it's not to deny ourselves either, though. Yeah, like I said, we're not asked to be martyrs. Even Jesus was a martyr, but even when it happened, his ministry, his effect did not stop at the tomb. He bore fruit well after his resurrection. To look at the movement. This love and agape we're supposed to pass on. Jesus has formed a partnership with us, all the business people out there. So this is a partnership, because with partnerships do things for each other. We are expected to go out and do this, to spread the agape love, to create a space for life when it seems that there is none, to help others flourish, nurture these friendships, and trust in God's grace. I got a great quote from a woman named Anna MacDonald, and she's talking about this partnership, about this agape love, and she says, it includes the excluded. It invites the ostracized. It meets the needs of the hunger, the isolated, and the oppressed. It's a reach out. It's an opening up. It's making room for somebody. It involves risk. It's called putting ourselves out there, but that's what we're supposed to do. So we go out, spread agape, make friendships, bear fruit. Like, what is fruit? We don't have to make it up. Use the gifts we've been given. If you like talking to people, talk to people. If you like talking in front of a camera and nobody else is here, do that too. That's fine. We've been given the gifts. Be present. Listen. Be available. That's all it is. Do we need training? I don't know. You know what I really enjoy is that in high schools, a lot of schools are requiring volunteerism. Maybe it goes, I haven't been in the system for a while, but it's probably before high school also. I think it's great that that's part of education, is to teach people to go to volunteerism. It teaches youth to live outside of themselves. And there's plenty of things we can do to do this. We can, our church participates in Teen Feed. That's a great thing to do. Or anything, local food banks. We have a food pantry outside down here. One of my daughters went to Little Bit Therapeutic Riding in Woodinville, and that's a great thing to do and help out there. Habitat for Humanity. There's all sorts of physical things that we can do. There's also things we can do that don't make us get out. We think about all the people suffering with the Black Lives Movement and Asian hate crimes and all the social injustice and things. We can be like Jesus there. We can be present. We can listen. We can have empathy for them. Once again, you can spread agape love even if you don't agree with an action somebody's doing. Spreading agape love is way more important. So we can be like Jesus, helping people, bring people together, spread that agape. This is my command. Love one another. Simple, right? Amen.